Hey guys, welcome to the start of another project. This time it's going to be a Sentinel 400 TV. It's the very first model that Sentinel put out. You might be more familiar with them for their radios. I believe they were based out of Evanston, Illinois, and they did have a few TV models they put out, like everybody else did with the rush, with the craze of TVs in the late 40s. And this is the very first one they put out as a funky little electrostatic set. And so we have a trapezoidal cabinet. Odd construction from what I've seen. I've never worked on one, but I've certainly been aware of them, so it's well known amongst the collectors. And I've read through some restoration write-ups online. We took a quick peek inside of this a few months ago. I did some triage videos. We tested the picture tube. We know it's good. And the internals didn't look scary or anything. But I'm in the midst of working on Halli T-54, which is also an electrostatic set. I need to order parts for that. This is the same owner, and I want to restore this one right after the Halli, so I want to order parts for both at the same time. There were a lot of production changes with this. The rider service info I don't quite trust because it appears in several volumes with a lot of different changes. I want to know what exactly do I have. I want to take a look inside. I've never pulled the chassis out. I also want to see if there's anything that scares me that looks like it's in really bad shape. Now, I also do have the Wallace Telly-8 for Sentinel. I wasn't sure I had this. I went digging through my volumes, and yes, indeed, I do. Covers everything from their initial production run, which would be this model, through early '56. I don't think they actually put out all that many models, but anyways, so perhaps all the variations are covered in this. I've never actually looked through this. Their slogan, Picture Sealed Sentinel TV, and I have this I picked up off eBay some years ago. I have no idea what picture sealed means, but that was their slogan. Perhaps we'll find out during the course of this project. So, this is an odd construction technique. It's plywood, kind of trapezoidal, two chassis with a big plug between them. It actually has a real power transformer. It's not a series strung set. And it has a hinged back for servicing. Handle on top. It's rather heavy. Now I need to pull the four knobs off the front. Beyond that, I figure out probably some bolts below, but there's also, well, here, I'll show you what's inside. It's also really, really freaking cold out, so I'm spending a lot of time here in the workshop. I've rarely gone outside in 4 days. So this is weird construction. I'm probably going to say weird a lot on this project. So we have two hinges on this side, antenna terminals, a bunch of holes to access all the various controls, and the power cord would have gone in there. It was crunchy, so I removed it, and it swings open. And we have a lower chassis with a power transformer. Another chassis mounted vertically. High voltage generator box will be in here, and this is the back end of the picture tube. Curiously, the power transformer is down here, but the rectifier and electrolytics are on a different chassis, so they have to run a bunch of wires between the two. And they put the tuner and all the IF down here. So, power supply, deflection amplifiers, oscillators up here, tuner, IF, the power transformer down here. Perhaps I just want to get this transformer as far away from the CRT as possible. It does have some shielding on it. So, I figure there's got to be bolts underneath for this chassis, but let's hold this one on. Okay. Yeah, we don't have, or do we? Okay, yeah, there are. Okay, there are 4 screws going through the toe locks. And then, I thought maybe they didn't want to have any fasteners showing, but yeah, there are 4 screws there. So, which one do we take out first? I'm inclined to go for the top one first and get that out of the way. There's a lot of connectors on this, and I don't think it's the highest quality connector. A lot of connections, I should say. Oh, that's weird. So the pins are on the bottom part. Yeah, so the male's on the bottom, and the female's actually the connector. I assumed it was going to be the opposite way around, but okay, whatever. So no knobs to worry about on this. I think I just take those 4 screws out. Oh, and I have to carefully. Well, I already removed this, so actually it's just barely hanging on there. So that part's already taken care of. How is this mounted? I think the CRT might be mounted to this. It just all comes out as one piece. Let's find out. Alright, that was really hung up in there on what I'm not exactly sure. I think maybe the CRT was kind of stuck to the mask. So I loosened the bracket that holds. It was going around the neck. I'll give you a better shot when I get this all out. And there's one last wire you need to extricate. It's a video lead, I presume. And boy, this actually weighs next to nothing. So I was struggling all this time to remove something that weighs a couple pounds. Crazy. And as soon as I got that out, the CRT just kind of fell down. So you can see, I think it was hung up on the mask, which is foam. But it looks to be in really, really good shape. It's still pliable, unlike the Motorola masks that often melt and deteriorate. There we go. Probably not been touched by the hand of a man since this was installed. It's an RCA. Actually, I doubt that's true because there's a whole bunch of like self-adhesive grippy tape like you put around, I don't know, tennis racket handle or something like that all around here. And this has been slit. I bet the base was loose. And so instead of gluing it, somebody just wrapped a bunch of tape around it, and maybe this is a replacement CRT, because they cut the original factory seal here to get this off and then reinstalled it. Super cheesy shield, just like you see on Motorola's. It's just pop riveted and just cut up metal. Presumably it's mu metal, which blocks magnetic fields. That's your real enemy with these. It's right above a power transformer. And your deflection elements are right in this area. That's why they shield it. Curiously, though, not every set did. The Hallicrafters I'm working on, for example, it's not shielded. Oh, this adhesive is just completely... Well, actually, the base is on there tight. I guess all the tape was just to hold this mess together. We'll clean that up. Tape it or wherever's appropriate. Yum. There is a nice big label inside here with the tube chart and stuff. We're going to get a good photo of that. I think that's about as good as I can do. Alright, so Sentinel television, model 400 TV, voltage 110 to 125, 175 watts. Quite a bit for a TV this small. So, yeah, I mean, the usual kind of complement of tubes you'd see in a set like this. Bunch of 6AG5, 6AU6s, 6AL5. And for the deflections, 6SN7s and 6SL7s. One curious thing though is a 6Y6 for the high voltage generator tube. Usually it's a 6V6 or 25L6. I've never seen a 6Y6 used before. It'll be to drive the primary of the high voltage coil. Alright, so let's see about getting this bottom chassis out and then we'll take a peek underneath. Oh boy, time to get the vacuum out again. This is going to be a little filthy. I may want to disconnect that speaker while working on this. It's going to be anxiety inducing. It's just hanging out there in the front, totally unprotected. Okay, let's put the cabinet aside. Oh, I sure didn't weigh much now. Disappear, and I'll get the chassis. The neat thing is when you work on these, you have the two chassis, you can put them side by side with that connector there. This whole thing's got to be aluminum. It's just, well, Yeah, I'm not sure. I think that's aluminum. This is aluminum for sure. So here's where the CRT was mounted. There was one screw pinching the neck down. Oh, and there are some around the front too, so this will probably tighten down around the front of it a bit too. So I think I could reinstall the CRT here and secure it down, and it'll be pretty stable on that. And it looks like you can have these two side by side and connect her up and work on it. Neat, neat. Let's take a look at this guy first. Oh, it's pretty well made, nicely machined. So that'll be our high voltage generator inside there. There's our nice Coke bottle, 6Y6 that drives the primary, the tube in there. Oh, look at that construction. It's on its own little it's like an erector set kind of thing, or something you'd make in shop class. Here is our power supply deflection amps. Here is the rectifier. I think it's this guy. Or no, it uses yeah, okay, so we have 4 6SN7s here. Or 3 S6. I thought those are the 6S. Yeah, okay, 3 6SN7s and a 6SL7. They all use a 6SL7 for the vertical deflection amp for some reason, and 6SN7s for the rest. Oh, that's got to be fun to adjust when the set's back together. Very frozen. So, the rectifiers, yeah, I forgot. No tube rectifier in this guy. Selenium. Not at all surprised at that. Gee, you want to take a guess at what servicing was done in this? Yep, they replaced the high voltage caps. Ooh. Just like the Hallicrafter, this has some Goodman television capacitors in it. Goodman Co. television. I hear it's unusual to find those in consumer grade stuff. So 2 of these are probably the original television caps, high voltage caps, but these 2 are very much replacements. And very, very funky ones and very crudely installed. They have straps that come out of them and they're tacked in place. It looks very sketchy. So yeah, these are 1000 picofarad, 6000 volts, and 5000 picofarad, 6000 volt caps. You got some nice wax. Looks like it oozed out of this, which I'm guessing is the audio output transformer. Or no, probably filter choke. Well, yeah, we'll find out. There are 2 seleniums. We'll replace those with silicon diodes. Got adaptive cap potential on one of these guys, but the other one's just a straight up twist lock. Alright, so that's that chassis. How about this guy? Filthy one. It's just dust. That'll just brush right off. Ooh. Okay. This might be 100% original. Strange construction. So there are little labels on these guys, which I think are chokes. So 2E78. So what am I looking for? What do I say it's all original? I'm looking for clipped leads, J-hooks, obvious signs of reworked joints, parts that don't seem to fit quite right. But I'm not seeing that. Even this, there's a little, little bit of lacing around the capacitor. That all looks pristine. Somebody pulled this, maybe they just didn't see any reason to change anything. Another selenium. There is a twist lock. Yeah, there's a little twist lock on this chassis after all. Filament dropper, resistor, or no, sorry. Oh, it's a surge limiter for the seleniums. I think that guy. And these, what are those? Sprague .01. Are those AC line filter caps, maybe? They kind of look like feed-through caps. I don't know what those are. We gotta figure it out. And one of these caps is made in Canada. You know, that might be a replacement, because there's a lead wrapped around that lug and it's just like a ½ inch kind of hanging out there, and this does look a little odd, so maybe that's one replacement. Most of the rest of these caps are Aerovox and made in Bedford, Massachusetts. So I got the collector that owns these is on the New York area. So they're bringing a Canadian part in there. It's not as strange as it might seem. It's probably not that far from the border. But, well, I like what I see. I've worked on a whole lot worse. As always with filtered chassis, the first thing I like to do is clean it so I get a better idea what I'm working on. Plus, it's just not as gross to work on. So, time for a soft brush and a little shop vac. Let's take a gander at the service info. Interesting little fold-out thing here. Various replacement parts, and here to list other Wallace Tilly aids a person can buy. I guess the previous owner was checking off the ones that they already own. Alright, well here's the index. And yeah, so there's an early and then a revised 400, and they're both in here, so it seems we got a good chance of having an accurate schematic. Notes. Alright, so here's the early, and here is the revised. First blush, what's the difference? Yeah, so I'll have to figure out which do we have. Oh, actually I can tell already. Or am I? Oh, I'm sorry. These are both the early. This is one. This is a separate schematic for each chassis. So this would be the tuner, and this is the deflection amp CRT stuff. This is the revised. Oh, nice schematics. So now we're back to, I gotta figure out what's the key difference. A few things I typically would change on these would be tuner and power supply. Okay, well there we go. So the early one uses a 12AT7 for the local oscillator, the tuner, and the later uses a 6C4. So what I'm going to do is peek in the tube chart, see what we got. Cool. We have a 12AT7. We have the early version. Good and bad. One, I just think it's neat to have the earliest stuff, but also means that it could be issues that they worked out in later revisions. Alright, so this should hopefully be accurate. So 6BH6 RF amp, 6 AG5 modulator, mixer, I'm guessing, and then half of a 12AT7 for the local oscillator. So are they just wasting the other half of the 12AT7? Sure looks like it. Probably why they changed to a 6C4 in later revisions. Just throwing away a triode. 3 stages of IF, all with 6AG5, 6AL5 detector. They're wasting half of that. 6AU6 video amp, 6AU6 sync separator, 6AU6 sound IF. And the sound is picked off after the video amp, so it's an inner carrier set. 6 AL5 detector, discriminator, 6 SQ7 audio amp. I see that a lot in sets. I don't get why they use a 6 SQ7. That has 2 diodes in it. It's a radio tube, but they're just not using the 2 diodes. I guess they couldn't work it out, so well, you'd use the 2 diodes in this for your discriminator sound detector. Well, because you need separate cathodes, that's why. Okay. And a 6 AS5 audio output tube. Alright, how about the other chassis? Here's our selenium rectifier. I'm guessing I got this configured as a voltage doubler. Yeah. So negative right off the AC line going into that. Cute way to draw the selenium rectifier. They're really representing those plates inside of it. And yeah, that is a filter choke in there, that big thing we saw. Vertical integrator, vertical oscillator, horizontal oscillator, 6SL7 vertical amp, 6SN7 horizontal amp, high voltage unit with our 6Y6. That's curious. That I was not expecting to see. I've never seen that before. So typically in these sets, they use the more sensitive, so electrostatic CRTs, you have deflection plates, horizontal, vertical. The one that's furthest back, closest to the electron gun, is going to be most sensitive, meaning you don't need as much voltage, you don't need as high an amplitude sawtooth wave to deflect the CRT across the screen. Typically they use that for horizontal. Also, a NTSC image being a 4:3 aspect ratio, it's wider than it is tall. So let's use the most sensitive plates to go left-right. So that's always going to be your horizontal. The vertical, the plates are closer to the front of the CRT, so you need more voltage and more amplitude to deflect it. No, you don't need to go as far because it's not going the full height of the CRT, but you still need a lot more voltage. So typically, it's like the equivalent to the boost voltage on a magnetically deflected set. Typically, they would get that higher voltage by dividing down the high voltage. See all these bleeder resistors here in the high voltage circuit, and they would tap into that and use that for the plates of the 6SL7. This, they have a separate secondary winding on the high voltage coil, and they use a 6X5 and a pi filter with just some dinky 0.01 microfarad caps, the 10 millihenry filter choke, just for the plates of 6SL7. Actually, just one of the plates of the 6SL7. The other plate is going to the divider. Wow, I'm having trouble wrapping my head around this. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't follow this right. This does not go to the 6SL. The 6SL7 is driven by bleeder network divider of the high voltage. No, this goes to the horizontal amplifier. The size control, and it drives the plates of the horizontal amplifier, not the vertical amplifier. Huh. Alright then. Interesting. Well, we shall see in due time how well does this design actually work. It's one of the more complicated designs. It's a popular set that made it for several years. It was sold under several, I think Firestone maybe, and certainly Airline, aka Montgomery Ward's, and maybe a few others. So I presume it works well enough. Alright, cool. I have everything I need. I'm going to review this more, put up a parts list, and place my order. I guess we'll wrap up here. I already know the picture tube is good. I'm going to get to cleaning this and ordering parts. Then once the Hallicrafter's done, I'm going to dive right into this guy.